Yeah.
Duvone, I really appreciate you doing this. I really enjoy doing podcasts, especially with people that I don't actually know personally very
Hmm.
well. It's and but you're someone whose name I have heard in my head since I moved to New York in 2010 or 11. I graduated from grad school, moved to New York, and met Kendall Williams, and he invited me to the Brooklyn, the New York panorama scene. I had been to Trinidad in 2002, and I was like, why has no one told me about this? you know, and I saw, and I think you had one in London at the time, or you were winning a lot in New York, and I was like, who is this guy that is, you know, anyway, just all this to say, I've heard your name a million times. And before we get into sort of what you're doing now, I'm really curious if you're okay to take me back to like baby Duvone Stewart and just tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about like how in the hell did you get to do what you do? Like, what was it? What were you like as a kid, and sort of go from there.
Um, I came from a family that played the instrument back in the day. It was like in the late 70s, early 80s. It wasn't really a profession inherited by the family, but it was like a hobby,
Hmm.
something that they had liked by the wayside, and they just continued with it. So luckily to be in a household where my dad, he was the captain of Trinidad and Tobago All Stars, and my mom, she was a player of the band Trinidad and Tobago All Stars. My dad used to play quadraphonics. Sorry, my dad used to play tenor pan, and my mom used to play quadraphonics. And the year was 1984, and I made my my way to the Panyard, accompanied by my parents, and I saw this instrument, and they were really, really into it. And I was like, being amongst kids and just receiving instructions of to sit, or I could take time to go and play, or whenever they get arrested, I might take my mom pan sticks and take a little knock on her pan, and take my dad sticks, take a little knock on his pan. And there and then I found out that I have a liking for this. And it was just a like until my dad got the responsibility to keep pans home at the house where I was living in Tobago, Scarborough. And out of curiosity, I would just start playing pan, and my dad was taking time to show me songs and show me music that the band was playing, and I was just responding very, very quickly towards it.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. I mean, I'm curious just because of the little bit like my introduction to Trinidadian culture was through Cliff Alexis when I was in high school, and he told
Mhm.
me a few things. He showed me some scars on his head that he was hit by policemen, like growing up, and I'm 17 years old. I'm a white kid from Ohio. Like, there's just some things that I've never experienced, and he said those things to me, and then he went away and tuned for
Yeah,
like a week, and then disappeared, and I was like, who is this wizard that just walks in here, and but he was telling me things that now as a 42-year-old man I'm like, oh wow, okay, I didn't realize how hard it was for him to
yeah,
to love the
yeah.
pan at that time. And so I'm curious, for you, were you as a kid recognizing any of that sort of like the class system in Trinidad in terms of the upper class looking at folks like not seeing pan men and women as legit?
No, 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 no. I wasn't exposed to that, but I heard of stories,
Hmm.
and I was given the knowledge of what took place in the past with individuals who wanted to penetrate a life in music and with steel pan in general.
Hmm.
And I put all these things behind me. I had all these negative things of the steel pan clash wars that took place in the
Yeah.
past and stuff like that. And I eliminated all these things, and I went head in first, because this is what I saw, this is what I loved, and this is what I wanted to be a part of. And I just received the full support from the family in what my decision was. Everybody wanted their child to make up their mind and decided what they wanted to be, if it was a doctor or police or a firefighter. Or the question was drawn into me by my parents, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to play music. I want to play steel pan. And they gave me the history. They gave me some knowledge of what took place in the past. And I was like, yo, I'm going to go ahead and do this, because, times change and things are going to change and things are going to get better. And here I am, 2021, and just living the dream that I've put in place, what I said to my parents that what I want to do, and this is it. I never had that negative thoughts of fighting against the lions or the hyenas or the piranhas in the ocean. And I just persevered and sacrificed and make time to nurture my craft and to make it happen, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's. I mean, I'm asking the question a little bit out of ignorance but a little bit out of like my experience. When I, as a foreigner, when I come into a pan yard, most often it's the older folks who come up to me and they immediately start telling me about all of the troubles that they had. Whether it's a pan yard in Brooklyn or it's a pan yard in San Fernando, like I know
Yeah.
the 15 guys are going to come up and talk to me and start telling me all the ways I'm drilling incorrectly because back in 1983, this is how this was done. And there's a part of me that has the little bit of a like we don't even know each other. Why are you yelling at me all of a sudden? But also, there's a respect for the culture there that I think, as a foreigner, I've just noticed and tracked that history is crucially important. And I'm curious.
Very, very important.
Yeah, and I would say for me as a foreigner, it's important. But I'm curious for you as a young kid in Trinidad, who is now like you are now in a position as an arranger and as a performer. You have a reputation not so different, whether you like to hear this or not so different than like Jit Samaru or Bugsy. Like, and there's young kids who are playing in bands that you're working with. As a young kid, did it ever dawn on you that you're like, I'm Jit Samaru's right there, or Bugsy Sharp is right there, and like what was that like as a kid growing up around all of these people who we now look at as like the fathers in terms of arranging and writing music and performing? Like, what was that like for you as a kid?
It was a marvel time for me because as you know, Trinidad and Tobago is two islands, and everything was taking place in Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
Tobago was just out of the wilderness. And back in the day, I used to be watching Panorama and Pan events back on TV, and I had this saying that everybody wanted to be like Mike, and that Gatorade advertisement of wanted to be like Mike was like resonating in my head and all the time. It was the year 1987, and I heard Dr. Jit Samaru's arrangement of Panini Minor. I heard it, and I want to be like him. I want to be like him. But I couldn't be like him and be in Tobago at the same time. I had to go to Trinidad. And he was my biggest hero, one of my biggest heroes, my idols, a guy who was opening a platform and a way for me to be where I am today. And to make my way to Trinidad on a weekend basis, every weekend, because I was going to school at the point in time, as I said, with the support of the parents that I had, my mom and my dad and the extended family, I made my way to Trinidad, and I was on 138 Charlotte Street, just walking to the Panyard and was like, wow, this is the guy that I just saw on television last week or last month and stuff like that. And I'm in the midst of royalty. I just wanted to go up and talk to him. But then again, too, there was like a barrier between me and meeting him. But yet still, I still acknowledge the fact that I was in his presence at the point in time. And that goes to all the arrangers that I look up to that really made it happen for me, because Renegades was the only steel band that I made my presence be felt in a Panyard, and I had to put my face through Panyard. And I was like, wow, this is Glenn Oaksy Sharp. Oh, this is Ray Holman. And I was like, I'm in the midst of royalty. I'm in the midst of virtuosos that I one day will be able to talk to, will be able to have a conversation, to get ideas. And I was really, really scared and really shy to walk up to these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And but yet still, the heart was big. The heart was really, really big in going out to meet these individuals. And I did it. I just introduced myself, and it wasn't like, okay, yeah, here's Duvone Stewart, and they leave and they go. We exchanged numbers, and the communication between myself and Dr. Jit Samaru was there. The communication between myself and Robert Greenwich was there. The late Kenny Professor Fillmore, Clive Bradley, you name it. I made contact with all these individuals while I was a kid, just moving from point A to point B, seeing them in the Panyard, seeing them working under the influence of just being in a zone and just delivering music to a group of people, hundreds of people at the same time. So it was really, really a joy for me being in the midst of these individuals in my young teenage days, growing up and seeing firsthand, was no TV thing, and everything was just real 2020 vision, seeing Dr. Jet Samaru walking through the pan yard with his manuscript and score sheets and stuff like that, going to the pans and talking, explaining, drilling. Same thing for Len Bugsy Sharp, same thing for Ken Professor Fillmore, same thing for Ray Holman and these guys. It was really, really an honor and privilege. And all these things that I saw back in the past is things that I work on, and I try to bring it. Duvone Stewart cited, where personality of an individual goes a long way with the individual who is delivering and being at the helmet, giving music or giving that motivation and connection within the players, is the person that has to be the strongest at all times. I have learned a lot, so much. I've learned a lot from these individuals, and here I am today, just living the dream and enjoying the dream, and thanks to them,
Well, I could listen to you talk about just like what it was like for you to walk around like in a pan. Like to me, that's the stuff that, when I came to Trinidad in 2002, and I'm in a pan yard. I'm in Phase 2's pan yard for the first. I'm there for 3.5 weeks. Nobody talks to me for like the first week and a half, except for Bugsy. And only to give me notes, And then Castro is like drilling me on the when Bugsy's not there, and Almond St. Rose, and I'm just like, what is happening all over the place? But I was experiencing something, and this is going to lead me to 2 questions here, and we'll get to both of them. So I apologize for the setup here. But you mentioned JIT with sheet music, scored out, right? But the way Bugsy disseminated music was not with a score. And maybe he does that now. I don't know if it's been 20 years since I've worked with Bugsy on that level. But regardless, what they both create are symphonic pieces of music that hold up against what was, in my experience as a young kid growing up in Ohio, Beethoven 9. The only difference, other than feel and cultural reference, all other than that, the only difference was that it wasn't written down. And I was looking at Bugsy, and I played Do What You Want, and there was a tiny part of me, I didn't understand why I had this little bit of grief. And then it was like 10 years later, I was like, oh, it's because no one will ever play Do What You Want again. Ever.
True.
And people don't have to agree with that part of my grief, and that's maybe my own baggage here. But that's one question I want to get to with you in terms of publishing and conservation of what it is that is happening in Trinidad and Tobago and all the ethics around that. But first, I want to ask you, like, when you were developing your own voice as a composer, how did you deal with those moments of like where you had heavy influence, like for example with Jit Samaru, where for me, when I look at Pan and A minor, I see score that is lined up left to right. Like there's 6 different lines happening that all work together. If you take the score to Misbehave by Bugsy, it's like everything is up and down vertically in terms of, it's like, oh wow, that's awesome. How did you deal with those types of influences, hearing the way he was treating different instruments, and then make it your own? How did you make it so it wasn't just a copy of Jit Samaru? You know what I mean? Am I asking that clearly? Probably not.
Yeah, I understand what you're asking, but
Okay.
To get from point A to point B, you had to start somewhere. I was heavily influenced by Dr. Jit's way of doing music. He would come in the panyard with music to deliver, being prepared or written on a score sheet from home. And he would just come in the panyard and take a group of us and take us across the Oxford Street, where we were given the music by him, all section leaders. And the music was given to us from him, and we come across to the panyard and we start to deliver the music. On one given point, on many given point in times where whatever he gave us on the sheet is not what he's going to register as the last foundation of what he created back home with the pen and the paper. He may hear something that just need a little tweaking. He may hear something that just need a little vibes, some spice, and somebody plays Jet rough it up some more and mash it up some more. And he would just dig it in on the spot and do it there. So he had the ability to do it, to set the template from home, where he had the knowledge of reading, writing, and setting that template and transcribing his work, and coming to the panyard and work free-handedly with the instructions of the players. I have never played with Face Through Pan Groove, but I've seen how Dr. Len Booksy Sharp operates as a musician. He is so gifted that everything is in his head at the point in time. He may not have the abilities to read and write music, but the musicianship that is embedded in him is a gift that God has given this individual to highlight his strong point in doing music on the spot. On the spot, very creative, very innovative. And when it all comes down to transcription at the end of the season, then anybody could get to articulate and see what he does. And explaining it to him, it come like you're talking to one ear and they're going through the other ear, because he know he's just creating music, making stuff like that. And that's the difference between Dr. Jet Samaru and Dr. Len Booksy Sharp. You know, these guys had the ability to do rote and note music against the one who could do rote note music, which is a comedy pioneer, and the vibes like that. When I saw these two traits, and I was like, okay, I can do the music in both ways. Then again, I mentioned before, the personality of the individual coming to the pioneer to relate the music onto to the individuals is a big part of it. Once you have a crew of people that believes in you, the sky is not the limit. You just keep on going and going and going. And that happened for me when I landed the job at BPTT Renegades. In 2012, it was like filling a big shoes that Jet Samaru started back in the 70s. I was in a position to receive comments of critique from people on the ground that I was sounding like Jet. Hence the reason I couldn't get away from it, because this is what I was taught and this is what I was mostly around at the point in time. And I was like, I just sat back and like, if you go to a music store and you see a book, Learn How to Play Jazz Solos and Improvisationals by Oscar Peterson, you read the book from top to bottom, and that information will resonate in your mind. Who will you sound like? Who will you be like? Oscar Peterson. But it now comes down to the point where the innovation, the creativity that is embedded in the individual to fusion his own vibe, his own energy with the doctrine that he received from the earlies, from that said book he wrote, he was reading. And that happened with me with Renegades. I had the opportunity to listen, to find a trademark that Renegades is being Renegades, work on it, enhance on it, bring my brand, bring my flavor, bring my style to it. And here, and then again, 2021, and I'm just evolving every single time. One of the things that helped me along the way is listening to different genres of music. In 2002, I had the opportunity to go to France. And I was like, before going to France, I was like, yeah, Duvone is like the new kid on the block. You know, he penetrating, he's sounding good. You know, he had vibes, he had energy, he had nice ideas. You know, when I went to France, I was like, okay, you see that ego you had in Trinidad, I threw it all away. And I was like a kid learning in school again, because I was exposed to different genres in a country that I considered a melting pot for music. Music from North Africa, music from Central Africa, music from East Europe, music from North Europe, were all coming into Paris and just venturing at the point in time. I had the opportunity to be around guys like Richard Bona, guys like Mario Canage, guys from the French.
Mario Canage is like one of the a piano player, right?
A piano player, yeah.
Like I listened to him through
Michel.
He plays with in
Sake Show.
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, I was thinking with Andy Norell. Yeah, that's where I got.
Yeah, he plays with Andy Norell too. Yeah,
first got turned on to him, and he blew my mind.
Yeah, he blew my mind away when I was in the midst of being a part of Sake Show, where Andy Norell was supposed to do a gig in Malaysia called the Gintan Jazz Festival, and he wasn't available to do it. And I got the call to come and do the gig. I was like, wow, I'm in the midst of royalty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm in boot camp.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the ideology, the creativity, the mindset that these guys had, the will, the heart, the passion that they put into music because it's an occupation for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they live, eat, breathe that shit every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And me learning polyrhythms and Western African rhythms and Northern African rhythms and French rhythm patterns and stuff like that. And I put it into use where I can institute it and integrate it back into Trinidad and Tobago culture. With the Panama genre music was concerned, it was mind-blowing. And every time I came back from France and I come the year after and I do something for my bands that I work with, people was like, marvel, where you get this from? And where you get this from? It was just about the thought process of educating myself and putting myself in a more knowledgeable mindset to receive and to accept every genre of music that is out there. The creativity that is inside of me is very, very big. It's mind-blowing. And I just exercise every single weakness that I had at the point in time with the knowledge and wisdom that I got from outside in being around these musicians and listening to these creativities and stuff like that. And that is something that I have to applaud the past generation of musicians and arrangers and composers in the steel pan fraternity, that where they got the knowledge from and where they exercise their knowledge from, they spread it globally to everybody. And Jet Samaru was that individual. Ray Holman was that individual. Dr. Len Sharp was that kind of individual. So doing it with Renegades, it was like, I wouldn't say a walk in the park, but it was like an experiment every year because, as I said, I embrace the fact in listening and appreciating all genres of music that God has placed on planet Earth for me to use and to transpose back onto the music with steel pan globally.
Well, the conversation around influence and appropriation of like how you absorb other cultures' music into your own is something that was immediately apparent to me again in 2002 when I went down there for the first time. It was like, wow, this is not a black country. This is not an Indian country. This is not a Chinese country.
Yeah.
This is like, this is everybody's here for a million reasons that are historically important. Slavery, all of this, indentured servitude, all of it. But there's an agreement here that the Indians aren't going to say, no, that steel band can't use that rhythm, or,
Sure.
Black people aren't going to say, oh, that African diasporic rhythm, this Indian steel band can't use that. Like there was an ecosystem that I felt dealt with that stuff in a healthy way. Of course, there's complications. I'm not saying there's not, but in the U.S. right now, there's a real discussion in the sort of Western classical musical world around influence. And if you're using an African drum on a piece, for example, from an Awe drumming group in Ghana, or you're super influenced by a rhythm, or you love that there's a real pushback against that of like, no, you're appropriating, you're stealing from another culture. And I'm curious for you, the reason I asked this question is because when I came to Trinidad for the first time, there was a real sense that I remember a few people asked me where I was from and wanted to know exactly where I was from. I was from Akron, Ohio. Or I'm from south of Akron, but I was in school in Akron, Ohio. And the term cultural thievery and cultural appropriation was made very clear to me at that point. And I'm curious for you, how do you see that now we're 20 years later, steel bands are now all over the world in a way that they weren't 20 years ago. Bands are in Japan, bands are in Idaho, like everywhere you go. How do you perceive the way now this culture is being absorbed in other parts of the world? How do you view that? Do you view it all healthy? Do you view it with any sort of skepticism? Do you view it with how do you see it?
I don't have any skepticism where it's concerned. Music is there to experiment. Music is there to take to a different level where they can enhance on one's creation. Back in the day, Jet Samaru was being critiqued on using a lot of rhythm changes back in the days, and they were saying like, he was not sticking to the spirit of carnival, but he was exhibiting something that people was not really penetrating in terms of respecting what is out there that God has provided each country with a culture, an identity, and he was just replicating it to show that the world is diverse, and bringing it back to steel pan music is what he did at the point in time until people start doing it afterwards, and they got to accept that, yo, this music is one of the greatest universal language that God has placed on planet Earth for us all to absorb every single thing that is out there. And I have no critique towards it. You know, everybody has their view on it, but I like experiment. I like challenges. I like new things that can make the music be free, to be inhaling and refreshing to the point that, wow, the song's good. Wow, the song's great. You know, where did it come from? Until we start digging up and trying to find out what really happened. Renegades was a touring band, and still a heavy touring band before the pandemic. And they have been to a lot of countries with the accompaniment of Dr. Jet Sanru, being with the band and going to places like Madagascar and Mauritius and Jordan and Morocco. And he's hearing different rhythmic patterns and rhythmic stuff like that. And he would be on a plane traveling from different country to country with a headphone, just writing music and just integrating different ideas and different rhythmic patterns to songs, and to try to come back to Trinidad and implement it in one of his panorama creations. We had a marvel time working with that situation, and we gave him the power to do what he was doing. Again, he was critiqued for it. He was being questioned about it. But then again, too, it's like now the way of life. Everybody has to accept what is out there and integrate it back into their whole soul and their own being. So I have no critic towards it.
Are there anything for you that are like, I don't know if you have any sort of irrational no-nos. Like for me, in this, just because I grew up playing steel drum gigs in Akron, I was asked to wear a flowered shirt a lot. And I'm Duvone, I'm just being honest. My podcast is called Concert Honesty. And there was one gig where I was asked to wear one of those Rasta hats with the dreadlocks sewn into it. And I didn't. And I swore to never wear a flowered shirt after that. And for 20 years, I have refused to wear a flowered shirt. And I was telling my bandmates this, the guys that I play with in So Percussion, who we went down to Trinidad in 2020 before the lockdown. They know I hate flowered shirts. What is Boogsy's band wearing for 2020 Vision that year? All flowered shirts.
Yeah.
And they all turned around and looked at me and they were like, I thought you weren't allowed to wear flowered shirts. And I was like, well, I'm not Boogsy Sharp. I'm not, But anyway, so that's an irrational no-no for me that I kind of still stand by. Like, if I can avoid wearing a flowered shirt, I will. But
I support you in that.
But I'm curious for you, are there anything that for Duvone Stewart, when you see it, you go, you sort of clench up a little bit?
I believe is like the connection that the instrument has on the global population. What Trinidad and Tobago sells and what Trinidad and Tobago put out there is what the world is going to gravitate to. There's so much more that this instrument can be seen and can be advertised in the light to make people feel a sense of acceptance for what it really is. For example, I'm in the West Coast out here, and the way they see pan out here is like an ambient instrument that just do background to entertain people at a function with a white pants and a flower shirt and sometimes a straw cap, And once you keep selling and marketing the instrument like this, not saying that they are doing it now, but that's how the West Coast may see it, And some countries may see it like that too. That is something like a no-no for me. I believe this instrument can be on the grand stage like the greats that play music in their respective ways with various instruments, like Mario Canage. Either way, no flower shirt. He came from Martinique. Yeah. Beanie Man came from Jamaica. He ain't playing no flower shirt. You're supposed to set an identity and be on the platform with these guys and be on the platform and project a light that what is this instrument there. Andy Narell, he's flamboyant in his own way. you don't see me in no flower shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, too, is the look, the presentation sells the instrument big time. And if we keep making these promoters or the people that hire us give us restrictions on what to wear, it becomes a problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a no-no for me. Vision 2020 for Steel Pan is about making our instrument becomes world globally accepted, to stand alongside any performer, any instrument with any genre of music, and just go out there and do your do. And I positively believe in that mantra. We have an instrument that has a voice that can speak volume for itself. And the only way for that to happen, the respect needs to come in 100%, big time.
I think that's been the hardest.
We must not be seen. We must not be seen as a group of individuals that come from a Caribbean country where coconut and sea and sand is there. So you have to portray coconut, sea, and sand. Martinique has coconut, tree, and sand. Jamaica has coconut, sea, and sand. Do they wear these flowered shirts? No. We come to play music. We come to deliver music. Everybody's in their own space where they can present their style of music with steel pan music going forward. So it doesn't mean that I have to be coming from a Caribbean country to wear the flower clothes and nah.
Well, it's something too. I mean, when you're far enough, like when you're 200 or 300 years removed from a particular start of an instrument, for example, the violin. The violin is not a suit and tie instrument. It was a folk instrument. Came from very dirty places, very grungy background in the woods. You know, like.
And what they made it today. They made it today as a jacket and tie
and a cummerbund or whatever. Like, you know, and it's. And so what the only reason I appreciate your answer here very much because I wasn't trying to bait you into the flowered shirt conversation but I appreciate what you said because for me I hear Cliff in my head anytime I think about a flowered shirt. I just think like, would I wear this around Cliff? And the answer is always no. Because first of all, Cliff would have told me what to wear. Second of all, he would have gone if he saw me in that shirt, you know, and
totally agree.
And I'm just saying for you, I think your point of respect and cultural respect, especially of the history, if you want to be really authentic to what a steel band would wear, buy Kim Johnson's illustrated story of Pan and wear that.
True.
Wear a sailor outfit. That's more culturally accurate than wearing a flowered shirt, if I'm not mistaken, right?
You're cool with that? You're cool with that?
Anyway, just saying, I really appreciate that answer. And that leads me to my sort of bigger question here about publishing. I think when it comes to cultural legacy and how folks are remembered, whether you like it or not, whether Beethoven likes it that way or not, he's remembered by his music now because we don't know what his voice sounds like. And in 200 years, people are going to look at you the same way and wonder, what was he saying? And I'm curious for you, I personally have a real fear, anxiety about the number of pieces that get created every year, both in New York and Brooklyn, London, Toronto, Miami, and how many of them get written down and put up on a site where somebody could purchase it and play it with their band in Texas. I bet there's maybe 5 out of every year that maybe get written down and put out in any way and maybe I'm missing it all. So I'm kind of curious for you, Duvone, what are your thoughts on that? Is my fear accurate? Should I have anxiety or should I just stop worrying about that?
No, you have to worry. If you ask for a pattern arrangement from Solo Harmonites in 1976, you wouldn't get it. Mm-hmm. I believe the guys that started doing it was the guys at Paniard Inc., Ron and Shelley. They came to Trinidad and they started to transcribe music to have in the universities globally, more extensively like the US. And there was a need to advertise and to showcase the creativity that is embedded in the arranger of that said song or arrangement or band.
Mm-hmm.
And we never really took it to the point where it can become a lucrative business, where we could take our intellectual property, our intellectual mind space and put it and document it and have it published so that people could have a piece of what is out there from what we create musically with an original composition. You could walk into a store and ask for any classical music. You could go to any website and download and ask for any classical music composed in the medieval, in the Baroque, in the whatever period that is were available in the past, and you will have it at your disposal from any of the said composers, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Wagner, Chopin, Bach. It's there. There are few musicians in the steampunk fraternity that do it or have it at their disposal today. Dr. Ray Holman has it. Dr. Len Bugsy Sharp has it to a point of what Paniard did. Dr. Jet Samaru has it to a point of what Paniard Inc. did. Ken Professor Fillmore is whatever somebody from the said time was around him who can try to recreate what he did and put it on a black and white.
Robbie Greenwich, I believe,
But that
had
is
one published as well.
Pardon me?
I think Robbie Greenwich had one published.
Yeah, what Robbie Greenwich had one published. And which leads me to some of the mistakes that were made in the past by people in the steel pan fraternity that they missed out on in having the work written and published and marketed in such a way so the next 200 years that work can be accessed through this medium so that the royalties of this individual can be grossly attained. I started back arranging in the year 2002 with a blog at Pan Groove. And I was just going through the phase of just playing music, arranging music, and not thinking about writing and transcribing and having my work documented to the point where I can have this score available for a single pan band in France or in Japan and stuff like that, because there are single pan bands all over the world. A lot was done to the point where I saw the mistakes that were made, and I have capitalized on the mistakes made and make it to a positive to benefit me personally. And I try to encourage every single arranger who is on the scene today in the steel pan fraternity, document your work. Because you never know what could happen with that piece of work going forward. From the band that just came on the preliminary stage, document it. The band that just make the semifinals, document it. The bands that make it to the final from first place to 10th place, have it documented. Have it and make it something that it can be placed on a publishing platform that John and Jane public globally could have their hands on. In 2012, I started to document my arrangements, maybe for Renegades, for Pan Elders, for Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. I'm now in the process of documenting my single pan work because I see that there is a positive that can come from it, where universities in the US, in Europe, in Asia, Africa, and Australia can have this piece of music at their disposal whenever they want to get it. Because if you ask it now for Len Bugsy Sharp arrangements of Magic Drum on a score sheet, you will never get it because it was never documented. If you ask for Coffee Street by Andy Norrell, you can't get it. So I, Duvone Stewart, just trying to educate my brothers and sisters back home. And for those who in the US who are not doing it, and for those in the UK that are not doing it, start documenting your work because you never know what could be happening with your work in these institutions that want to find out and want to be a part of what goes on in the mind of the individual doing an arrangement.
It's one of the
publication side, I have received offers from a couple publishing groups to have my music on. And this whole pandemic that I've been through right now, I like to tell you, Josh, it put me in a place where and I can recalibrate and just go back in the zone and say, yo, Duvone, this is what you was doing wrong. Have this done, put this out there so people could have 100% access in having it done. I'm in the process of meeting with some publications company while I'm in the US here to have my arrangements be on the shelf for universities all over the world to have access to. From 2012 Renegades up to 2020, Panellas, Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, all the music has already been scored and documented. It's just to have it publicated to the publishing company so that people can have access to it. And if this is a template for brothers and sisters in the steel band fraternity to follow, I assure you guys it is the right thing to do. Because Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Bach, you can access their music. But if you ask to access the work of B.J. Marcel, the Cats and Jammers and Tobago, you cannot get it. It comes like wasted music just going on the train. It's not wasted until you take time to document it, and there's time to document it.
I feel like, a lot of the arguments I'm seeing online about, Pan Trimbago and the way they best can serve the Pan community in Trinidad. And again, like I'm removed from all the day-to-day politics there, so pardon my ignorance on
likewise
on everything there. But in terms of like, if money was unlimited, I feel like if every band in Trinidad, in addition to having an arranger, band captain, skipper, like all those things, like if there were two people, one person with a laptop and another person just going around keeping track of all the changes every day. So Duvone Stewart, you have an assistant. The day one you're in with Renegades, and somebody's just there taking notes. And then at the end of that rehearsal, they're like, here's the 12 bars you taught today. And then you come in tomorrow, and that person's just sitting there. Oh, you changed the third bar. Yeah, make that change. And so by the end, on finals day, you can still certainly change it. But you have, if every band had the funding to just have that staffing, to me that...
I could safely say BPTT Renegades has it.
Good, awesome. I didn't know.
I am part of the organization, and the guy that is working alongside with me is a guy called Dante Panton. Mm-hmm. I have to give credit to Mr. Salman Cupid for the innovation and invention of the electronic steel pan, where I can go to the studio or go to my home lab where I do my music, and I do the music. It's transcribed. I email the music to the section leaders, so physically I don't have to go to the pan yard to do the music. That is one good thing that Renegades has. Mm-hmm. Every section leader reads music. Wow. The music is being emailed to them.
Is that a requirement? Like, do you require that? Do you require that of the section leaders, or is that just culturally something that's been the case there since Jit was there?
It was an initiative done by BP, the sponsor, to take the stage side members and to put them into the Trinidad and Tobago University, the University of Trinidad and Tobago. They had courses going on, and every section and every stage side member in the steel orchestra reads music. They give them a sheet, they do it, and they play it. They recite, read, and they do it. They replicate, and it's there for them to do. So everything that has been done with BP integrating that to the players, it was a big benefit for me and for the band, because every time I change something, it's there documented. They could see it's documented. And that formula has been working with me and the band from since 2012 to 2020, the last Panorama. It was not just Panorama only. Mm-hmm. Our classical music done by Mr. Desmond Waite. Mm. he does the classical side of the band, and he does the transcribing of Chopin, Bach, because the band has a contract with its agents called Run Production to produce a concert, a classical concert every year in January with the Run Production company to do classical concerts in Europe. And when he comes to the Panyard, he don't go say, yo, play G, G sharp, A, and first like that. He gives them a sheet, and they take like about 5-10 minutes. He knock the pan, and the band just start to play classical music just like that. Renegades I can speak of. It's like an occupation for these guys in Renegade Steel Orchestra. Against to the guys back at other bands, I can't speak vividly for them or on concrete ground, but how I see it is like a hobby. You know, they come in to play for Panorama, and as Panorama done, they go back to their normal day-to-day job. It's like a doctor or a lawyer or a bank accountant or stuff like that. But in Renegades, you know, it's not really a requirement, but it was something that BPTT saw to institute and to integrate within the orchestra to have these musicians well equipped that they can do theory work and institute that theory work and bring it practical so that could make the work very easy for the players coming forward in the band. So every player that comes into the band and into Renegades band, they have the knowledge of learning music because the ones who know it, they will teach the ones next to them.
Well,
which know this, which know, then they go, yeah.
It's a remarkably progressive view on how to run a steel band. I mean, in terms of culturally, I mean, just to say, like, it's not something that works overnight. You know, like BP didn't say that, and then like started on a Monday, and then on Wednesday everybody's reading music. Like, this is a decade-long investment that is now in a spot where it's paid off. Only to say that I want to encourage anybody who's afraid of making those sorts of investments. They pay off. They're worth it.
It pay off, it pay off big time. It pays off big time. I could take something like no more than 12 days to do a Panorama arrangement, and it takes no more than 21 days to have it done. That is a timeline that I have. It can be done quicker. It depends on me when I recreate the ideas to put on the sheet to deliver to the band. It all depends on me. But the Renegade Steel Orchestra, I like to tell them, and Josh, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have a group of guys like this. And any arranger who walks into that Panyard after Duvone Stewart, I could guarantee you guys, you have a band that is well equipped, both theoretical and practical, in exhibit whatever you want to do with whatever ideas and music that you have on your sheet.
Well, you've clearly...
They could respond in both. They could respond both ways.
Yeah.
They could respond both ways. But for me, I see the need for documentation as a key. Having your music documented. So when that final night presentation is done, this is a score. It goes up to the vault in Renegades. We have been through a pandemic for like close to 2 years.
Yeah.
The Panis hasn't been in the Panyard for like 2 years. They still could read music. But if that day comes up, we could open up and say we could go back to the Panyard and learn this piece of music. They don't need Duvone Stewart physically to come and say, what note did they do here? Or what chord did they do here? What is it 2 notes to do here? Yeah. It's all documented. And that is one of the big things that happens for Renegades. We are never out of being in a space where we have to go back and start from 0 to meet 100. I'm speaking for Renegades. I don't want to sound like I'm very cocky or I'm showing off with it, but it's the right thing to do. Have your work documented, have your work placed in a platform where you can archive it and go back and get it.
Well, you mentioned you've sung his praises a lot, but I just also want to point out that like you inherited a similar mindset from Dr. Jit Samaru in the way that he ran the band, I'm guessing. Like there was a real culture there set up, and you now have the responsibility to carry that on and then hand it to somebody however long down in the future.
That's a vision that we have, striving beyond horizon.
And I've stolen 53 minutes of your life, Duvone, and I promise I'll get you out of here by 4.
Problem, man, you could talk how long you want, man.
I got 2 questions for you, and one of them is aspirational, and one of them is vulnerable. I'll start with the vulnerable one, so we'll end on aspirational. I would love it if you, and if you would rather just say next question, just say next question. But has there ever been a panorama that you've won when deep down inside of you, you knew another band should have won because you personally were like, man, that tune was better, or that, or like, is there, as a music, I'm asking this because as a musician, I feel like sometimes I do really well and everybody's like, that was amazing. And in my heart, I'm like, I don't think you know what amazing is out of me. You just missed it today. But anyway, I'm curious for you, has there ever been a year that you've won or where you felt like, I should have got it. Should have gone to this other band. And I know that's a vulnerable question to answer for you in the position you're in, but I'm just kind of curious.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. You know,
Yeah.
In the beginning, every arranger dream is to win a panorama or to be called first place winner.
Mm-hmm.
They had a process to get there, and I was always learning and always learning. And every time that I had the opportunity to work with any of the bands, you know, they could come first, second, third, fifth, 10th, didn't make the semifinals, didn't make the finals. I was still at the position to go and get something done. For me, music is a mission. I don't ever see it as a competition. I see it as a mission. And I see it as a learning process for me to nurture my craft, to nurture my ideology, and to put it in a context where I should do better in my creation the year before and just bring something new to the table, a new idea, stuff like that to the table. To all the bands that has been in front and all the arrangers that has been in front of Duvone, when 7 people say that you have won, I congratulate them. I gave them calls, I gave them the kudos. But at the end of the day, I'm going back to that drawing board and just try to recreate myself and put myself in a position to bring new ideas and new music to the table so that I can feel refreshed, the players can feel confident, and the masses out there, you can't please everybody at the same time too, because the 7 people that listen to you at the point in time may not really have the capabilities to listen to 6 or 7 voices at 124 BPM for 8 minutes or 10 minutes consistently for in a night duration to come up with a winner. But it's just like at the end of the day, it's the vibe and the energy that is integrated in the minds and hearts of people in Trinidad and Tobago that has this camaraderie of the competition element that say we have fanatics. My band beats your band, and this band beats that band, and this band, you're a song better than you tonight, and this and that. Me, I go with the mantra of music is a mission. It's a competition. It's not a competition. 2018 will always be my highlight in greatness in what I have done for me as an arranger. And I believe that I got the opportunity to be me and to feel refreshing, replicating me with Renegades. Of being a champion arranger in 2018, it wasn't like, yeah, you reach. Stop there. I was still pushing on 2019. I was still pushing on in 2020. And I will still continue to push on as long as I'm alive, bringing new ideas and new concepts and vibes to steel pan music. Then let's end it off. Music is a mission. It's not a competition.
Well, I appreciate
all the guys that did it. All the guys who did it before me, they were my learning platform. They brought out the best in me to dig deep and find my true purpose, my true energy that God has given me to work with.
It's
a lot of people say the sky is the limit or the stars is the limit. Nah. I want to go further than the stars. There's somewhere further than the stars. There's somewhere further than somewhere that you feel is the place of comfort zone. The only time that I will not be comfortable meeting that comfort place is when God is ready for me to go back to dust. I will always keep penetrating, always keep giving my all, always coming up with nice ideas, new concepts, new energy, and bringing it to every single band that I work with. The same energy I do with Renegades, I do with Panelers, I do with Defense Force, I do with Ebony, I do with every single band. Winning is just one part of it, but the consistency in delivering your offering to the masses on the outside, it speaks volume for me.
Well, this brings me that's a great answer, and I appreciated it because the premise of my question was that you saw it as a competition, and of course, if you don't see it as a competition, then you're going to give the answer you gave, and so I appreciate that. I'm curious now, just to sort of like just to wrap up, what haven't you done in Pan that like Is there anything in your compositional sort of like dreams when you're by yourself and you're like, if I just didn't have this logistical hurdle, if I just had this amount of money, if I just had this thing, like I could do this thing with Renegades that no one's ever done, or Pan Elders, or whoever it is. Is there anything that, like, I mean, again, you don't have to let the cat out of the bag if you already got something in the works, but like, what haven't you done that you really want to do right now that no one else has done?
Man, I have so many ideas in my mind that's plaguing me for many, many years to try to bring to the table where steel pan music is concerned. Um, the views and comments I'm going to make with this answer is all about Duvone Stewart. For me, I see a monotony. I am being around a monotony where steel pan music is concerned. We don't really take time to push ourselves in trying to experiment, because when you experiment, prepare to fail and to receive critique answers along the way. The only way to get it correct is when you get that critique from John and Jane public to manifest it, nurture it, make it better going forward. With that being said and done, I have a lot of plans that I have in my mind that I want to do that nobody in steel pan has never really ventured doing. I'm not going to reveal them now, but it's still in the making. But there's so much that this instrument can collaborate with, can integrate with in being what it's supposed to be or where it should be. Because I may have my contribution with my views. Somebody may see it next 10, 15 years, and they want to elaborate on it as a new idea that they have, that they could continue the process. But safely saying, now, back in Trinidad and Tobago, we are stuck in a position where the monotony is gaining the advantage of creativity and ideology for where this instrument can show its true potential going forward. There's so much that I could do, so much that people have in their mind to do. But safely saying, I must say that I have a band in BPTT Renegades. They are like riskers. They are a bunch of risking individuals and wanting to do different things, and which gives me the freedom to go home and just brainstorm and think up some mad shit to put in the panyard when the night comes.
Well, this is, I mean, I appreciate that answer because, again, you said the word experiment. I mean, experiments are something you do to which you don't know what the outcome's going to be. I mean, that's the definition of an experiment. You don't know what the end result's going to be. The invention of the steel drum was an experiment. I mean, this whole thing was absolutely doing things that no one else was doing, finding the little crack in the sidewalk and growing up through it and becoming a tree. Like, all of those things is exactly where this instrument came from. So it's interesting to me to hear you say that there's a little bit of stagnation happening because anyway, just to say, like, I appreciate that sort of let's keep tilling the soil to keep air and oxygen in the nutrients in the soil because it's where it all came from. It came from people asking questions and doing the thing. If Ellie Bennett had never made the Barracuda pan, maybe somebody else would have. But nobody else did. Ellie did, and there were many tuners doing that all over the islands, But anyway, just to say, Duvone, this has been really fun, and I apologize for stealing an hour and 2 minutes of your life. But
no, man, you could take out. You guys, as I said, you could take time, man. I'm blessed and honored to give my ideas and my concepts and my vision where I want to see my instrument being seen as a leader, not a follower, a leader in its own right, And I say, once we back home in Trinidad and Tobago take the time to respect it for what it is and set that example in being a role model and a template for others to follow, we can all come together and grow ideas and grow knowledge to make this instrument be what it's really supposed to be. Pan is much more than panorama. That's all I have to tell Trinidad and Tobago. Pan is much more than panorama. There's so many months after the month of March for us to experiment and to put things into perspective so that the music and the instrument can be viewed as a 12-month instrument, not just a 2-month instrument. We have to put the groundwork in to make it happen. And with that, to make it happen, we all have to come together, unite, share, educate, and just project the music globally so that the masses could see the true potential of what this instrument can give to each and every human being on planet Earth.
Duvone, I couldn't say it better, so I will just leave it at that. That was I really enjoyed this chat. And my policy with the podcast is my door's always open. If there's anything if I say something on a podcast that you listen to and you're like, I need to talk to this dum-dum because we need to set the record straight.
Yeah.
Just hit me up.
No problem, man. I'm here, man. I'm here, man.
But I hope you stay safe and healthy, and I really hope that we can connect and grab a beer or something in Trinidad or Brooklyn or wherever. And
I'm not a beer drinker, sorry.
Or whatever, a cran apple, I don't care. Whatever, an apple J. I'm loose.
We drink some water.
Okay, sounds good. Well, stay healthy, Duvone.
Hennessy preferable.
We can do that. All right, man. Take it easy, stay safe, and we'll talk soon,
man.
okay?
Yeah, man. Blessed, man. Thanks very much for having me, man.
All right, likewise. Take care.
That's it.
Bye. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. This podcast is brought to you by Liquid Drum, liquiddrum.com down in Waco, Texas. My good friend Todd Meehan runs an amazing percussion company down there. Great merch, great content. Check him out, liquiddrum.com. Also, Kyle Dunleavy, dunleavypans.com, DUNLEAVY pans.com. Kyle Dunleavy makes and builds all the steel drums that I perform and teach on, in percussion, as well as at NYU and Princeton. He's an amazing tuner, builder, just a really nice guy, very dependable. Check him out. If you are interested at all in steel pan advocacy, want to learn more about the goings-on in pan in Brooklyn, check out paninmotion.com. My good friend Kendall Williams, Jerry Guy, Trisha Guy, and Arisha John run an amazing organization called paninmotion.com. Check them out. And finally, Alejandro Mirage runs an amazing clothing apparel company in Brooklyn that is steel pan centric. You can check him out at mangochow, CHOW, clothing.com. I own a bunch of his shirts. They're amazing, very stylish, beautifully made. Check them out. mangochowclothing.com. Okay, hope you're well. Talk to you soon. Bye.